manifestos from Evie and from Matthew. So yeah, we'll go in that order for the Husts. And so yeah, each of you will have 5 minutes, but again, you don't have to use it all. So Evie, when you're ready, take it away.
Hello everyone, my name is Evie Press and I'm running to be your Welfare Officer for Events for the upcoming year. I'm a first year sociology student and I am passionate about wellbeing and structures of support for the members of our community. Being at university during a pandemic has brought more challenges than many of us thought it would, and has certainly not made self-care and well-being easy. A fundamental problem that I've seen arise from the pandemic is a feeling of isolation, both physical and emotional, and many students across the country are reporting this loneliness, which exacerbates already existing mental health and well-being issues. I too have felt strained throughout this year, and the welfare team have been a cornerstone of support during this difficult time. My aims, therefore, are to continue Lizzie's great work as Welfare Officer for Events, offering and adding to a wealth of resources and events, and to emphasise community and inclusion amidst the effects of COVID. In my time at sixth form, I'm focused much of my extracurricular efforts on wellbeing and support for the student body. For 3 years, I produced, directed, managed and compared charity cabarets, which raised over £1,500 overall for a local domestic abuse charity. Through this, we were able to support talented student performers and offered a well-deserved yet rare break from this stressful working environment to our audience of both students and staff. Through this experience, I learned the value of events that supported well-being and was able to work as a leader and within a team to delegate and manage a large-scale 2-day yearly event. I'm also a trained practitioner for the Escape the Trap programme, a psycho-educational programme on teenage relationship abuse, which works therapeutically, and I run the social media pages for the programme, building on my solid and empathetic understanding of many key issues that face young people. As outlined in my manifesto, I have many new ideas to bring to the role, including specifically COVID-secure welfare activities, such as a walking buddy scheme. As much of our socialisation over the past year has been majorly disrupted by COVID, this scheme would aim to bring together groups of people with similar interests from across the college, so that even if restrictions on how many of us can meet are put into place at any point over the coming year, there is still the option to get to know other Johnians that you won't have had the chance to meet. Another of these COVID-secure schemes is a series of speed meeting events that can be held online, where pairs or small groups are put into breakout rooms with a set of fun conversation starters to help build relationships across the community. Moreover, I have personally so enjoyed the many multicultural events and celebrations throughout the year, from Diwali to Lunar New Year, celebrating our diverse community at John's. It is important to me to maintain and champion these events, and would work closely with college representatives and members of our community to make sure each are as representative and accessible as possible. Building on my knowledge of the dynamics of relationship abuse, I would aim to run a detailed and impactful campaign on relationship abuse and coercive control, which many young people have a lack of knowledge about, especially regarding the signs of abuse. Further, I would continue and advocate for ongoing campaigns around sexual health and consent, which were presented so wonderfully this year by the current welfare team. Technological well-being is another issue I feel strongly for, especially with so much of our time spent on screens during our working hours and socialising. Although this should hopefully change with lifting restrictions, it is still important for all of us to take time away from technology, which has a mixed effect on well-being. Taking care of ourselves is so easy to neglect and yet so vital. My central tenet with creating welfare events is to make sure we can provide you with all the resources you need to support and empower you to take up the opportunity of looking out for yourself. No judgment, no punishment, just support and a friendly face. I love St John's and the community that we are a part of, and if offered the role of Welfare Officer for Events, I would work passionately and collaboratively to improve well-being in college and continue to cultivate a supportive and inclusive environment. Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions or concerns, do not hesitate to let me know.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of clarification about Evie's Hust or her manifesto? If not, then yeah, Matthew, when you're ready, do you want to make a start?
Hello, everybody. My name is Matthew Tan, and I'm running to be the Welfare Officer for Events. Some background about me. I'm a first-year law student from Singapore. I currently serve as one of the 2 international reps in the SJCR, and I also sit on the SU committee as a member. Firstly, Why am I running for this role? In my role as the international rep, I've been fortunate to be able to be the voice for international students in college. This includes organizing events such as Chinese New Year and finding new ways to support our international students through the COVID pandemic. I've seen the impact which such events have on international students, and I want to bring this impact to the wider Johns community. Coming from Singapore, I remember being really scared when I arrived last September. A new country, a new school, a new life, essentially. But the Johns community helped me with the transition immensely, even with the pandemic. The role of the welfare officer events is to work in tandem with the other elected representatives in the welfare events team and the other welfare events members. I view my role more as a facilitator. So I would propose things that include a suggestion box so that the SJCR members can propose different cultural events which they feel should be held. I will also work closely with the different reps, such as the POC rep, the LGBT rep, the international rep, to ensure that we hold events which represent the different communities in Johns. Should I be elected, I will put forward a motion to include the POC rep, the LGBT rep, the international rep, the financial well-being rep, the Live Out rep, the Year Abroad rep, the multi-faith coordinator, and the disabilities rep to be included in the welfare events committee. This is to ensure that, or just for clarification, this welfare committee refers to the one mentioned in the constitution, but it does not include the above reps that I just mentioned. This to ensure that the awareness raising campaigns and the coordination of the welfare events team could be more easily and better synergized. For example, a campaign to raise awareness of anti-Asian discrimination can be better coordinated when you have the POC rep and the international rep on the committee. In the immediate future, I would want to start a study group for students in order for students, especially freshers, to have access to their course mates. As many of us have never met our course mates, when we are faced with difficulty with certain topics, at least if we start an online virtual study group, we will be able to turn to them for help. So this is meant to be a forum for students who need help with subject-related matters to discuss them. And this will help everybody in the upcoming exam season. However, given that the COVID restrictions in May and beyond that are not finalized yet, I would rather not give specific proposals on what I want to do yet, because the nature of the whole situation can change. But I would definitely want to have social distance and de-stress events outdoors and student support packs with food. With all that's being said, I would like to humbly ask for your support at the upcoming Epiphany election. Thank you.
Thanks, Matthew. Are there any questions of clarification about that or Matthew's manifesto? Catherine.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask kind of what you meant by the committee, if you were referring to Welfare Representation Committee, because I think, just to clarify, I think People of Colour Rep, I can't remember which other one you mentioned, but they are members of that committee already. So I just wanted to clarify what you were, whether you were talking about the team or the Representation Committee.
Yeah, Matthew.
I was referring to the Welfare Events Committee, which is in the Constitution under the Welfare Subcommittee Regulation number 3 Welfare Committee. So it's the second committee after the Welfare Representation Committee. So it is for the coordination of, from reading the Constitution, I understood it to be the coordination of welfare campaigns as well as coordination of welfare events. And I just found it a bit peculiar that the POC rep and the LGBT rep and the international rep who plan events together with the welfare events team aren't actually in the committee as well.
Okay, are you happy with that, Catherine?
Yeah, I think that's a committee that we perhaps haven't had very active this year, because we do envisage, I know, I don't think Lizzie's here, but we have worked as a team as a whole, and the structure that I put earlier does have all those reps as part of the team. So yeah, sorry, it's probably just I'm not very constitutionally adept, but from my workings of working with the team, they are all included. So yeah, it's probably just a wording thing. But yeah, no, thank you for clarifying.
Okay, any more questions of clarification? In which case we'll move on to general questions, which apply to both Evie, Matthew, and Ron. And so I think the first one is from Gabriel.
Yes, so could candidates please tell me what does the SJCL welfare confidentiality policy, what does that contain in terms of disclosure?
Okay, Evie first, please.
Can I clarify in terms of disclosure, do you mean in terms of kind of students coming to us to disclose information at an event, or whether that is more like peer support?
Yes, so somebody comes up to you at an event and discloses something to you. What do you have to do depending on what is disclosed?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a kind of issue with what's going on with the event, a kind of small scale issue, I would either handle that directly or go to one of the peer support officers or other members of the peer support team. If it were perhaps a larger issue that were maybe damaging to the student, or perhaps they felt was a bit of a threat to their safety or their state of kind of well-being, and yeah, I would signpost them to the senior tutor's office.
And Matthew.
From my understanding of the confidentiality and the disclosure policy from attending the welfare representative committee meetings is that the disclosure policy is such that you don't disclose unless the student or another student is at risk to themselves or to other people. So I would say that, for example, if there is potential of the problem of self-harm, and you would signpost them to the senior tutor's office, because yeah, that you should do that.
Gabriel, did you want to come back on that?
Yes, just to follow up on that. So I do know that policy does say you can signpost people, but if there's a situation of self-harm, then must you actually disclose this? And if so, who to?
Is that a question to both candidates? Sorry.
Yes, I put it to both of them.
Okay. So it will keep switching order. So Matthew first.
I would say that when you signpost them, it is the disclosures to ensure that the student is not at risk to herself or himself or themselves, because it is not. I feel that us as welfare officers will get the welfare training. However, at the end of the day, it is still, I personally feel that to disclose this to somebody higher up will make the situation a lot better.
Yes, so to clarify your response, you would disclose this information to a senior tutor's office?
Because the disclosure policy is such that if the student is at risk to himself, herself, or themselves, we will need to disclose it.
Yes, that's fine.
And Evie?
Yeah, I'd completely agree with Matthew on that one, actually. If the student is at risk of harming themselves, then that is a serious issue that needs to be taken to a high level with someone who can support them, possibly from like a counselling perspective rather than a student perspective.
Yes, thanks very much for that answer. I was just making sure that you know that we can't just signpost.
Thanks, Gabriel. Okay, there's quite a few of you hands up, so apologies if I don't get the order quite right, but I think Molly had a question next.
Yep. So my question was, if you could kind of pick one personal campaign priority for yourself, what would it be?
Evie?
Mine would definitely be relationship abuse. I feel very passionately about that issue, and I think it's something that doesn't get brought up enough kind of in school or in our kind of education system and training, and having people be made aware of the signs of abuse is, I think, a really key thing that we as a welfare events team could be able to put out into the community.
Thank you. And Matthew?
Personally, for me, it will be anti-Asian discrimination, because I think in light of the whole COVID situation, we racist attacks against the Asian community have skyrocketed, and I would definitely want to raise awareness on the issues that the community faces.
Thanks. Imogen, please.
Yeah, so my question is, imagine there's no COVID restrictions, you have all the budget in the world, what one event would you run as welfare events officer?
Matthew first, please.
Something which I really, with no COVID restrictions, would be something similar to like the petting zoo that they did a few years ago, which I was talking to my friend about it, and I felt that animals, especially during times of stress, is something that will help you calm down. So I would do something similar to like a petting zoo, where you like bring like dogs in and bring like other animals in to help with therapy, to help de-stress.
And Evie.
Honestly, yeah, I would say the same thing. I saw that it had been done a few years ago and thought, wow, it would be absolutely amazing to do something like that as part of like Stress Less, or just throughout the year if all COVID restrictions had disappeared, or possibly you know, bouncy castles, I think are always a great way to have some fun and relax and de-stress.
Thanks, Faith. Catherine, next, please.
Yeah, I'm really sorry we've just turned down the petting zoo for this year because it's not COVID safe, but next year maybe. I have a question more about the practicality side of being a welfare officer. So you'll be line managing quite a big team, which is made up of, you know, all those reps that we mentioned earlier, and you'll also have a budget to work with, which isn't extensive, but you are responsible or jointly responsible for the welfare budget. So I guess I just wanted to know a little bit about maybe any experience you have in either managing a team or managing a budget, or what kind of things you would want to take into consideration to enable you to do that to the best of your abilities.
Evie?
Yeah, as I outlined in my Hust there, I was director and manager and kind of co-creator of this charity cabaret event that I ran for 3 years in a row. It was a 2-day yearly event, and I had to organise the performances, and I had to organise my team and delegate tasks to my team, figure out what kind of theme I wanted for that year, figure out how to talk to members of the senior leadership team and get rooms and budgets from them. And a way that I would kind of bring that forward into this role would definitely be to kind of be looking at how free everyone is, firstly, and how much kind of responsibility they can take on for a given event. Because obviously we have various pressures from various courses of summatives and formatives and etc. And would kind of look to people's skills and experience there as well in order to delegate different tasks.
And Matthew?
I've been in the fortunate position to be the international rep, so I was able to run Chinese New Year for the college this year. And from that experience, I felt that something that Lizzie, the stuff that Lizzie did when she liaised with the college catering team or the college, the different college staff, and how Lizzie talked with the exec or with like coordinating everything else, I think that is something which I take with me. So with regard to like managing the budget, how we did it was when we would have like a meeting and we would go through each item and we would make sure that each item is within the budget, and we, at the end of the meeting, we have an acceptable amount for everybody for that the meeting is okay with. So I would say like the meeting would include like the SJCR president, the other SJCR welfare officer, the different reps which are needed at the meeting. For example, if it's a Diwali celebration, maybe the multi-faith coordinator will come to the meeting. So I would have like a meeting to discuss and make sure all the practicalities and all the budgets are happening. And also something I realized was that oftentimes there can be crises that happen during the planning of an event. So I would keep myself as accessible as possible to my team, which is something that Lizzie did for us during Chinese New Year, because there were multiple issues that came up during Chinese New Year, and we were able to solve that. So I feel that for me, my role, like I said, in my Hust was to be a facilitator and to make sure that everybody can work well together in a meeting and to get everybody to be on the same page.
Thanks. And I think our next question was from Thomas.
Well, so you may have seen earlier in the term that Lizzie, the current welfare events officer, organised self-care challenges and got all of the exec to challenge students to do something as a self-care mechanism for a week each earlier this term. So what would be your self-care challenge for students to do as a means to de-stress for a week?
Matthew, up first.
Apologies, did you say that it was me first?
Sorry, Matthew, sorry.
Sorry, I think my Wi-Fi cut out there. My de-stress thing, dancing, I think. I've found real solace in having maybe 5 minutes of just dancing to my favourite song every day during this period of lockdown and isolation. So I definitely encourage everyone to go out and have a dance for just 5 minutes, 20 minutes. Makes me feel a lot better.
Thanks. And Matthew?
For me, it would be singing, because I think a lot of my neighbors in the Gulf would sometimes say that I like sing a lot. And for me, that is my de-stressor, because it just helps me vocalize and helps me clear my head. And so I would challenge, even like, no matter whether if you think you're good or not, to just sing and let it out, because I think everybody has that inner like diva personality to just let it out, and it will really help. Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm afraid we only have time for one more question, but if you do have one and you don't get a chance to ask, I'm sure the candidates will be more than happy to talk to you in private if you drop them a message. So Cancer, I think could we go to you for the final question?
Yeah, so you mentioned that you will work in coordination with other welfare officers. How would you offer them the support to make their job easier? For example, if we could go ahead with the Multicultures Day, how would you make that day a success and a memorable thingy for all Johnians?
Matthew first.
So as I mentioned to Catherine, it was like to help to make sure that I am the facilitator of all the discussions and to make sure that I point you in the correct direction. For example, if the multi-faith, a multicultural day, you want to do different types of food. So we will go through the catering department to clear the food to make sure that it is safe. And like, for example, it adheres to the no nut policy of the college. Or for example, if you want to hang up decorations, I'll go to, for example, housekeeping to make sure that we can do certain stuff so that it does not, we don't do anything that they wouldn't like. Also, for example, I would direct you to, I'll coordinate a meeting with the different other reps in the committee, for example. So in a multi-faith day, I would presume that we will have like the POC rep there as well, because it is, yeah, the POC rep and the international rep, because they might have their own experiences that they can bring to the table, and I would help to coordinate that kind of thing to ensure that we have an event that is all-encompassing and to make sure that it fully represents the diversity of Johns.
Thanks. And Evie?
Yeah, well, I'd probably say that first I'd have a meeting with everyone on the welfare events team and get some ideas going. Definitely put whichever kind of coordinator is at the forefront of the event at the forefront of the conversation, but get ideas from everyone, talk about accessibility and availability of everyone as well. So if we needed to delegate to quite a few people, that we could know who to go to. Definitely, it's about making sure that the event is accessible and as representative as possible of the diverse community that we have as Johns. And I would put the ideas of the people with that kind of experience at the forefront there and support that and however I can in terms of signposting you to different people in the college, as Matt said, with if it was to do with catering, setting up a meeting there, or supporting you to set up a meeting. I'd kind of work in tandem with you whilst also empowering you to lead the event with your expertise.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, that brings us to the end of the hosting for that position. So thanks to all the candidates and everyone who asked a question. And yeah.